Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Vault, episode number 46. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and tonight I have the pleasure of having Dave from the Panthers Nation podcast joining me tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at champd1012. Dave, how's it going, man? Welcome to Inside the Vault.
What's going on, man? Appreciate the invite, Ryan. I hope all is well with you on your end. I know it's been
Yes,
a rough
sir.
weekend, but no.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. For those who may not be familiar with Panther Nation podcast, tell them kind of about the PNP and kind of what you guys do over on that end.
So, Panther Nation podcast, we go live on YouTube every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're the largest independent show that covers the Carolina Panthers on YouTube. We've been doing it since 2017. Fun. So it's been a fun blast. We also do draft coverage. We do draft breakdowns, fantasy football, and things of that sort. It's a labor of love for me and Rashad. Like we enjoy it. And you have to enjoy it considering that we've only had one winning season since we've done the show. So it should be. But shout out to all the folks that are going to watch this that are fans of the show. I'm definitely going to let you guys know about the episode when it comes up.
Sounds great. Well, Dave, let's get into the Carolina Panthers falling to the New Orleans Saints 47-10 in week number one. I actually had the pleasure or not pleasure, however you want to think of it. I was actually in New Orleans. So I was there. I was there in person. I saw the game from the Superdome. Fans were very nice, good food in New Orleans, but the result, not so much for our Panthers. Dave, first off, take me through some of your takeaways from the game, besides the obvious, but just your overall bird's eye view of this game.
I'll tell you, I got a confession, and folks who watched P&P earlier this week would know this. I didn't catch the game live. I was flying home from another game when this game was happening. So I had the pleasure of watching the replay later in the week. I was told not to watch the replay, but I knew I had to watch the replay before I go on the show, right? So I watched the replay before I went on the show, and the big thing I noticed was one of the main things I noticed was the fact that Bryce had time. So I can't, like, normally the issue was the quarterback doesn't have time, and that's how we connect to. That was not the case at all. I felt like as a whole, our offensive line is fixed. I'm just worried about everything else now, which might be scarier than past years, right? It didn't seem like we could do anything right outside of the fact the offensive line gave Bryce protection. I don't think defensively we weren't good. I think there was a lot of confusion on defense. We weren't good on special teams. We weren't good on offense. It was just rough across the board. I tried my best to find the positives out of it, and the offensive line is the main thing I could find out of it. Either we're that bad or the Saints are better than I thought they would be this year. Because I didn't think the Saints were going to be that good this year. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, really, at least, I mean, obviously, I was there. A lot of things, pretty much everything that could go wrong could go wrong for the first game of the season. You had take away the Bryce turnovers. You had Mingo fumbling the football. You had special teams giving up punt returns for huge yardage left and right. Defenses were left in short fields a lot of the time, but even when they weren't giving the Saints much to resistance at all. They scored on the first 9 possessions, ended up being 30-0 at halftime. Maybe 30-3 with an Eddie Pinheiro field goal in there. So I know you've talked about it. I'm going to talk about it on my other podcast. Well, let's talk about it here. Sam Monson from the NFL. He was on, I think it was Ross Tucker today, and he talked. This was his quote: "If Bryce Young is as bad as he's looking right now, they are destined for the number 1 overall pick in 2025 and then a reset at quarterback in the next guy." Do you agree or do you disagree? And before you answer, it seems like Panthers fans are in 2 camps. If Bryce 2 to 3 more games looks as bad as he did in week 1, play Andy Dalton and let's at least salvage some of the season. Yes, I'm with you there. You're shaking your head. I'm with you there. And then camp 2, doesn't matter how Bryce looks, good or bad. He has 16 games. This is his evaluation. Good or bad, we need to see what he can do because he really wasn't given a fair shot, in year number 1. So anyway, so that it just seems there you go. So it seems like Panthers camp falls in 2 different baskets there.
Folks got to decide what this year is for Bryce Young, right? And the reason why I say that is that the offense changed 3 times under the purview last year
Yep.
alone, right?
Yep.
So when you take that into account, you gotta decide how do you want to handle the second year. I've always been part of the 3 year theory, and me and Rashad on PNP on Tuesday pretty much had the whole back and forth about how to handle this Bryce situation. I'm a believer, like normally I would give a quarterback 3 years. I don't know if Bryce is going to get that same grace, but I don't think it should be 2 or 3 games either. I don't think it should be 3 more games to make a decision. Like I don't, I'm not in the play Andy Dalton field.
No,
I'm not like guys.
he's on
Like
his way out of the NFL.
I don't like. We gotta stop this. I mean, they did the same thing to Cam. Like people forget that when Cam was having rough games, folks were legitimately considering whether or not to bring in Derek Anderson. Like, so we gotta stop this. We gotta let the guy play. If there was a time that we wanted to see Andy Dalton, it should have been last year.
Yep.
That was the year to do it. Like if you sit Bryce now, you're just pretty much saying it's over. You're not even giving him a chance. Like this is his fourth offense that he's learned since he's been in the league. This is 18 and we're 18 games into this adventure. Right? I'm not gonna even count the ones where he didn't play because I know he was injured for a game or two, if I recall last year.
Yes. Yeah,
So
in Seattle. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that was when Andy Dalton threw the ball like 1,000 times.
Exactly.
So so I say all that to say we got to have some level of patience. I know this isn't fun because we haven't had a winning record since 2017. We haven't had a winning record since PNP started. All right. So I get it. I understand that folks want to see results now, but it takes more than Bryce Young to be successful. And if you don't believe that, do you know who the 2 best quarterbacks were over the weekend? And let me be clear when I say this: quarterback play was not that good last weekend.
It was
It wasn't.
not.
But do
No.
you know who were the 2 best quarterbacks last weekend?
I have my guesses, but you can go ahead and insight my audience.
No, go ahead. No, I want to hear your guesses.
So are we talking statistically or what,
I'm
when you
I'm
say two?
talking like when you talk about overall play, like there's some rating that they give for like overall. I don't think it's QBR, but it's some different type of rating. But I'll answer it for you, man.
All
The
right.
2 best
Baker
quarterback.
Mayfield was my guess.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Who's number two?
I'm gonna say I know exactly what you're talking about, and I cannot remember the other guy at this. I know Baker was one, and it was either I want to say I don't think it was Stroud.
No, it wasn't Stroud.
Okay, I'm gonna guess. Mm, there's a lot of. Was it Carr? It was not Carr.
It was a car. It was Sam
Okay,
Darnold.
go ahead.
It was
Go
Sam
ahead.
Darnold.
Oh, okay. That's yeah, Sam Darnold. I
So
should know that.
so 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 2 quarterbacks who have been on our team, who've been
Yes,
on our roster. At
yes,
one point, they were both on the roster at the same time.
yes.
Top 2 quarterbacks last weekend. So I think it goes to show you gotta put pieces around a quarterback to succeed, not just offensively, defensively too.
Yep.
Then you can get a better idea if the guy is good or not. Like Baker's having a resurgence in his career. We're gonna wait and see how it goes,
We'll see
right?
how this goes. Yep.
But I will say this: when Wilkes had Sam wasn't half bad. Like
Mm-mm.
Wilkes, but that comes to coaching. There's a lot of factors involved. We don't know what Canales is yet. We hope we're hoping we know what Canales is going to be, but we
Right.
don't know what Canales is yet. We don't. We
No, we
just
don't.
don't.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm of the camp. Give Bryce 3 years, like you said. If he's still bad and after 2025 season, then maybe we can have a conversation. But this year is all about evaluating Bryce Young, getting him the reps, like you said. He was not set up to succeed in year one. I know they're not the same quarterback, and I know their height is completely different. But I compare this to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence with Urban Meyer in year one did not really stand a chance. And then year two, Doug Peterson comes in, kind of resets everything that Lawrence is learning. And if I'm not mistaken, he did not make the playoffs that year either, but he at least took a step. And that's
But
what we're looking for.
he made the playoffs the second year. When did he get
I thought it
drafted?
was third year, but
Oh yeah,
maybe
it
he
might
might
have
have
been
been
third. You
second.
might have been right. You might be right.
But he
It,
took a step, and that's what we want to see from Bryce this year. I want to see multiple steps personally, but at least take some steps. And I think fans, like you said, are just too reactive, especially to this game, because you know people are saying, well, if Canales had just played Bryce in the starters, for all 3 preseason games, it may not have looked like game one looked. And I would say even if they did play all those preseason snaps, 47-10, I still have a hard time thinking 47-10 would have happened too. But I still think he still could have thrown all those interceptions. It still could have been bad. It may just not have been 47-10 bad, even
I,
with those reps.
I
But
will I will say this. I think preseason matters, man.
it does.
It matters, man. I've won fantasy championships off of what I saw in the preseason from certain teams in fantasy football. Um, I and this will hurt Panthers fans. But I knew that Denver defense was big time during the preseason the year when they won that Super Bowl against us. I knew it was big time then. I saw enough to know like this is probably gonna be the best defense in the NFL this year. And they were. And they were. And so I just think that when you make the decision to not give Bryce those reps, when you have a brand new offense, when you have a brand new offensive line, you just drafted a wide receiver, you know he was kind of injured, hurt during the period. You got brand new, but you do have brand new receivers there. Deontay Johnson's now your one. You need those actual game reps. There are some coaches that believe in oh, well, we did the joint practices, which I did go to the Jets joint practice. And I was impressed with what I saw. But when I saw that, I knew that he wasn't going to play in that game.
Yeah.
So and I knew because based on the way that Canals was going. And initially Canals was saying, well, we don't have our offensive line yet. Doesn't make sense to bring him out there like that. But you didn't have the offensive line when you did decide to play him against the backups in the final preseason game. So you kind of became I won't say hypocrite probably right. Yeah, you were a hypocrite with regards to that. You kind of said something and pretty much did it anyway. And it was because you did not have your offensive line intact. So for me, when you make a decision like that, and then you see why the team looked as flat as it is, that first game looked like a preseason game to us.
Yeah.
We were
Yes.
slow. Like we weren't getting off the ball. Now, is there a talent challenge? Absolutely, there is. There are some pockets within the squad where there is some talent challenges. I screamed about the pass rush all off season. I did not want to draft a wide receiver in the first round. I was vocal about that. I
Yep.
just didn't want to do it because we had so many other holes. And I understand why, but I just was not interested in trading up to go get another wide receiver when we just drafted one. Now, could we have gotten one later in the draft? Sure. But we needed edge rusher help badly. Badly. And that was a big factor too. We couldn't get to the quarterback.
Yep. You're not wrong. Derek Carr had time to go get a macchiato or something else and throw all those touchdowns that he did. Let's switch to the defensive side of the ball. We'll get back to the game to the game as a whole as we preview the Chargers coming into Bank of America Stadium for the home opener. Jim Harbaugh's second game as an NFL head coach in the Chargers realm, and obviously former Panther quarterback at one time as well. But defensively against the Saints and just in general, obviously, as Panther fans have heard by now, Derek Brown out for the season, meniscus
Yeah.
surgery coming up for him. And gosh, Dave, you hate to see that. Just forget about how big of a loss it is, which it is. Derek Brown, the person, the player, everything. He is a awesome human being. I hate this for him. He is a man amongst boys out there, and they're gonna miss him very much. So talk about the impact of him going down. Who do you think has a chance to step up into this role? And are they going to do this by committee? Obviously, we hear guys like LeBron Ray, TV, Nick Thurman. Obviously, we just signed Charles Harris for pass rush help, which does not,
That
help
doesn't
Brown.
fix the problem.
Um, yeah. So, what is your thoughts there?
He's the best player on our team. I
Yeah,
think I think folks will agree with me there, right? You're not going to be able to replace that. Like I'm just I don't want to be the downer here,
I think
but
most people agree with you.
yeah, I'm just want to be clear. Like you're not going to be able to place an all pro defensive tackle. Like those are hard to come by, right? And it doesn't seem like the Panthers organization is looking into trying to find a replacement. And to be quite frank, I don't think I'm interested in them trying to give up draft capital to get some help.
Right.
Only because I feel like we're going to pay too much.
Yeah.
So we're gonna probably have to roll with Ray and Peavy, man. Like I mean, we really ain't got much of a choice. Now that being said, I know how bad the game was last weekend on Sunday. However, I still believe in Evero. I believe he can. I believe he can probably scheme something to keep it interesting. I just don't. But we were having trouble with the run last season. We're just gonna have to face the fact that we're definitely gonna have more trouble with the run this year. But I'm hoping that he can scheme something to try to help the defense out. But this was a huge blow to the defense, man. Like this is tough. This was tough. And the only thing that you can hope for is that they did play like a preseason game last week, and maybe they'll play with a lot more confidence, with a lot more speed, with a lot more urgency this weekend against the Chargers because we're definitely going to need it.
That is for sure. Let's switch gears now, going into the Chargers game as they come to town for the Panthers home opener. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. What are you looking for from the offense going into this game? What are some of your keys that you need for the Panthers to do to come out with a victory?
I think the best thing we can give Bryce Young right now is a good running game and a consistent running game. So I think that's the first thing I need to see. Miles Sanders actually did pretty well last week against the Saints. He just didn't have as many opportunities. I need Chuba to step it up. Like Chuba's supposed to be RB1. So I need Chuba to step up big time from that regard. I think we got to get our run game going against the Chargers. And because probably quite frankly, we could probably test their defensive line, but their defensive line is much better than what the Saints had. I mean, you got Bosa, you got
Hello,
Ingram
Mac.
from, yeah, you got Khalil Mack, like you got guys, man. And I don't think Ingram plays for them anymore, or do he? Does he play for them anymore?
Ingram?
Yeah, no,
No,
he's gone. He left.
he does not. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
And
thought.
then
So
Derwin
so
James on the back end as well, still there.
yeah, you got Derwin James. So I it'll be interesting to see if our pass protection keeps up with these guys. Because I think this is a different type of challenge. I mean, we talk about the flight, the early game. Maybe that'll help us a little bit. We're gonna need it, But
Yeah.
I don't know how much like that used to be a thing years ago. I don't know how much of a thing it is now. Um, with regards to the West Coast team flying all the way to the East Coast for an early game. But overall, man, I think we're gonna come out here better, but I think the Chargers are a very good team, and we know they're well coached. Jim Harbaugh is a heck of a coach. But defensively, I am concerned about that pass rush from the Chargers. Very concerned about it.
And then on defensive side of the ball, you saw last week Joe Alt, their rookie left tackle, going against Max Crosby, and he shut him down. I mean, Max is like one of the best defenders in the league, and Joe Alt was really well graded out, and he was throwing haymakers at him, and Joe Alt had answers for him at first start as a rookie. That's pretty impressive. So I'm assuming Alt is going to be matched up against Clowney, or at least most of the game. So what are you looking for from the defensive side of the ball as we try to stop Justin Herbert in this J.K. Dobbins led offense, which is hard to believe, with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams no longer there. It seems Jim Harbaugh, as we know, wants to run the ball with Gus Edwards and
Hmm.
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, and that's my concern ultimately is our ability to stop those two guys, right? Joel Alt will be going up against Clowney, but the thing is, Clowney's the only pass rush that we have.
Yeah.
So like I'm concerned about that aspect of it. We need somebody on the other side that steps up, whether it's DJ Johnson, somebody like
Michael Leota.
somebody, yeah, Leota. Somebody has to step up this weekend
Yep.
because if it's just Clowney, even if let's say Clowney starts getting the best of all, they'll just chip him. They'll
Yep.
just chip him with a tight end, and that'll be that. And then we know we can't. Somebody on the other end's got to do something.
Yep.
So I think that's the big concern for me. Like I mean, Dobbins and Gus, man, is a pretty good one-two punch. Consider all the like when you think about all the weapons that the Chargers have lost. No Austin Eckler, no Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I didn't mention him. Yeah.
So in my mind, I want to believe that JC Horn should be able to shut down one of these guys.
Yes.
All right. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking. Hopefully the communication is better defensively when it comes from the safety help and things of that sort.
Sure. Sure.
But in my mind, I want to believe that Quentin Johnson ain't gonna do nothing against us, right? Whatever side that JC's gonna be on, I'm not worried about one of the guys. Now the other side, Mike Jackson, the jury's out. Not sure how I feel yet on the other end, but you know,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be as negative as I could be about this because after what I saw when I watched the game, man, it's rough, man. It's tough because I think the Chargers are a better team than the Saints, and now they're coming to us. So I'm hoping that we're ramped up to play at home and we actually get to make a game out of this game.
Yeah. I mean, well, and if the Panthers can somehow manage to get a W in this game, I mean, going out to Las Vegas, following week, I mean, obviously it's a
Feeling
road
good.
game, but it's a win. That's a winnable game. And
Feels good
uh,
then.
yeah, and then anyway, and then Cincinnati didn't look that great in week one, so we've got some manageable games here coming up. But we got to see it, like you said, starts with week two, the home opener. We got to
Yep.
see a better product than what we had last time.
Those pesky Bengals got me eliminated in my pool, man.
Same. Oh my
Bruh.
goodness. Yeah, we will talk about that.
For those who don't know, I live in New England. So I did not expect the Patriots to do what they did on Sunday, and they Mayo can coach. He can coach. I mean, simple as that. He can coach.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, oh, yeah. When it comes to this team, the Panthers, I know it's one game. Fans, are going to say, "Well, it's one game. Let's learn from it. Let's flush it." Some coaches will say let's just flush that game film. Let's not even watch it. Some coaches, let's learn from it. Let's get better. Blah blah blah. What do you think we talk about the mentality of the Panthers coming out in this game and really setting the tone, establishing the run? Because me personally, I think they need to get an early lead on the Chargers. Personally,
have
that's
to.
have to. But what do you think the mentality is coming into this game on Sunday from the not necessarily the game plan, but just from the team perspective? Because I mean, if you're not pissed losing 47-10, something is wrong with you. If you're not absolutely demoralized, embarrassed, what do you ever want to call it, and you just want to get that ugly taste out of your mouth from the Superdome, go back to home soil, and then lay it in to Justin Herbert and the Chargers come on Sunday. Sunday can't come soon enough.
Yeah, man. I hope that's the case. I mean, the coach said they were somber at the end of the game, so I need them to be fired up coming
Yeah.
into this one, right? Like we have to find a way to win this game. We got to figure it out. Only because if we don't, we're sitting at 0-2. Hard to make. Well, I did not have us going to the playoffs this year,
I did not either.
but the odds are pretty slim if you start 0-2 that you're going to make the playoffs, right?
Unless you're the Bengals, they tend to start slow anyway.
Yeah, they tend to start slow, but there's
Yeah, yeah,
exceptions to every rule, right?
yeah.
But like for us, like when you look at the schedule, like we're it gets interesting because now if we don't start winning some games, we're gonna start testing our owners' patience again. And
Yep.
that's my fear, right? Like
Yeah.
for me, it comes down to we got to get this right, but at some point we got to have some level of patience for the guy that we decide to hire.
Mhm.
And I'm always concerned that the patience go out the window when things get really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like what happened last year, things were really, really bad. So I'm hoping that we do show progress, and I would love to see a win on Sunday.
Of course. Yeah.
And if we do see progress, then we can start feeling like we're building on this thing. If we come out like we did against the Saints again,
Oh boy. Boy.
I'm just
Let's
saying,
not.
like listen, man, we gotta have that discussion because we always like I don't want to know who my owner is. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to know who my owner is. I want to know who the coach is, and maybe I want to know who the GM is. I don't want to know who the owner is. And when we get to the moments that we know who the owner is, then that's a ticking time bomb for the coach, which leads for more instability. And we can talk about whether or not Bryce is the guy or not. Bryce ain't gonna succeed if he's got to keep changing coaches constantly. It's just
Yeah.
not gonna happen. Like it's just not gonna happen. Not too many players can do that.
Mm.
That ain't even a Bryce problem. That's a quarterback problem, period, when you do that.
Mhm.
So, When we talk about quarterbacks who tend to have challenges and they tend to struggle in the league, check out the stability of the situation because that's a factor too. It's a big factor,
Mhm.
So
So, and going big picture for just a second, what does success look like for the Panthers this season? No matter how many games they win or lose, or maybe that is your feeling, but what does success look like this year for this team? What in your mind, what would constitute success this year?
so from my standpoint, I want to see progress from what I saw last season. If you ask me right now, and we're only one game in, so I
Right.
mean it's easy to panic after week one. But if you ask me right now, this is probably what I saw on Sunday. What I saw yesterday when I watched on Tuesday when I watched the game was probably the worst home opener in the franchise's history. Not home opener, I mean like open day.
Open day,
Like
yeah,
yeah, open day. Worst opening day in franchise history. We've been around
pretty
for 30
close.
years.
Yeah,
Like I can't think of a first game that was worse than this. Like I was debating it. Like I was trying to think about it. Can't think of one. I cannot do it. Somebody in the chat might do it later on YouTube or something, but I could not think of one. Cause I tried, man. I couldn't think of one. So, you know, so for success for me is progress from the previous season. I did not expect us to make the playoffs this year. I do expect us to win more ball games than we did last year. But also I expected us to be more competitive going into these games, and I expect us to beat the Saints on Sunday too. So
yeah,
that's the thing, right? So when you go and you lay the egg that you laid in the first week, then you start looking at the rest of the schedule like, all right, if we're gonna be playing like this all year, who we gonna beat?
yep,
You know what I'm saying?
yep.
Can we beat the Chargers? Can we beat the Raiders? Can we beat the Giants in Germany? The running joke I got right now is what if what if I fly out because I'm going to the game out in Munich. What if I fly all the way out to Munich to go to see two winless teams and we're both fighting for our first win? That would be insane. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, the joke out there is, I don't want to joke about the serious things, but yeah, it's like we're subjecting the citizens of Germany to the Giants and the Panthers. It's like the NFL is doing that to them, and it's like, yeah,
I mean, I don't think they thought that we were going to be this bad. I don't think they thought that we were going to be. But once again, 1 week,
yeah.
1 week.
I
But
have seen. We obviously are not Super Bowl contenders. That's not what I'm saying
no,
here. We have seen teams that were bad week one go on to make the playoffs or even just have respectable seasons. Heck,
absolutely.
Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. Last time I checked, and they lost to Detroit in the opening game. I know it wasn't the same thing, competitive game, obviously. Week one it's week one. There's a lot of things that you can take away. Your team might look really bad. Your team might look really good. Week one is still week one at the end of the day. So 16 more opportunities to
Yep.
see what happens. Um, you mentioned you were clamoring during the draft and all off season that you wanted to draft an edge. Um, what is something on the opposite end that you feel like that we're not talking about enough, with the Panthers, whether it's my podcast, your podcast, Panther content creators in general? What are something we're not talking about enough when it comes to this 2024 version of the Panthers? Could be something good, could be something not so good. What's something that we are not talking about enough?
I think as a fan base, as the podcasters of the world, when it comes to the Carolina Panthers, we I don't know if it's like maybe we're talking about it too much. I don't want
Okay.
to all right, because I think there's a pocket of this fan base that wants to be right about Bryce failing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think there's a pocket
And
of
that's
this
because
fan.
they did CJ Stroud, correct? Is that what you're
Yes.
okay?
And I think we have to stop thinking that way. And the reason and I'll explain why. Number one, Bryce Young was the consensus number one guy. Consensus.
I, I have talked to some people who are in the know. The Houston Texans will never admit it, but they would
They
have
were going.
selected Bryce number
I'm
one
going to
if
tell you
they,
now. I talk to people too,
and
and
I
I can
know,
tell you that
yes,
Bryce Young, if Houston had the dibs of their first quarterback, Bryce Young would have been him. He
yep.
would have been in Houston. If we
People
did
don't want
not
to believe
trade,
it. It's
if
true.
we if we did not trade up to one, Bryce was going to be the first guy off the board regardless. Regardless. Like sometimes these there's more to it than just drafting a guy. Like I know shout out to Dominique Foxworth, but he talks about he doesn't believe drafting a number one quarterback number one overall is the always the solution to your success. It's about everything else you put around him, the coaching, the personnel, like the offensive line, the
Yep.
scheme fit. There's so many other factors involved when it comes to drafting a quarterback. And you don't have to draft them in the first round. That's why you get guys like Brock Purdy out here going to the Super Bowl. Why did Brock Purdy go to the Super Bowl? He wasn't number one overall pick,
Yep.
you know?
He has the Avengers around him, as some people like to say.
Or I mean, and we can talk about Sanford like, well, they got Christian McCaffrey. Well, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey on Monday.
Nope.
And that guy that never had 30 carries in his life got 30 carries and ran for over 150 yards. If your scheme is good, your scheme is good.
Yep.
And there's so many other factors involved. I think we have to stop that conversation. We need to root for the quarterback that we have, and we need to root for our team to be better in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with making somebody accountable, but I think there's some pockets of the fan base and some podcasters too, and I'm not going to call nobody out, that are rooting for the failure of this man for one
No,
reason or another.
that's not me,
And
sir.
no, I know it ain't you. But my point, my thing is that you wouldn't be asking for Andy Dalton if you were rooting for that guy to fail.
I
You
hear you.
wouldn't be. You
Yeah.
would not be. You wouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, a good point. Outside of, we talked about edge rusher on defensive side of the ball. For offensive side of the ball, take Bryce out of it.
Yep.
Just for a second, let's take Bryce out of it. Is there a position on offense that you're also kind of scratching your head a little bit? The defensive line with Clowney being our only, someone's got to step up on the other side. Is it Trimble? Is it Ian Thomas? Is it Jatavian Sanders with the tight end space? Is it receivers with, I mean, because you look at the game on Sunday, watch the film, like Deontay Johnson was open, Adam Thielen had some targets. Xavier Legette, I was impressed with what he was
Yeah.
able to do in the limited time that he had. And then Jonathan Mingo, he wasn't so good. So is there
Just remember, Ryan, you don't draft Leggett if you thought Mingo was good enough in the first round. You don't. You don't do that. So I think um I'm not ready to say we got to draft another receiver again because I know everybody wants to hear that, right?
right?
But but if you're gonna ask me a need going into the following season, it probably would be we probably need to consider taking another receiver because Thielen's probably not going to come back or he might get released.
Right.
Deontay Johnson's a free agent. So unless Mingo turns it around, you're gonna have Leggett and Mingo. And I think Jalen Coker is a project for Canales. I think Jalen Coker's a guy they're gonna try to work into long term gonna be a guy. But
Yeah.
that's a project. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to him. We got the interview and very, very, very good player, good guy.
Yeah.
So I think, but that's a long-term plan for them, right? Within this regime. Okay.
Yeah.
So you could argue grab another wide receiver. Um, when we're talking early, right? Offensive line probably could start. Are we ready to have the discussions about Icky? I'm
I'm
not.
not. I'm
I'm
not.
not yet.
No.
There's some that are. I mean, we just signed a bunch of guards. I mean, we could use a center long term.
Well, Andrew Rame, I was impressed with him in that Buffalo preseason game. He started there and he didn't look half bad. It was games against second stringers, but um, you know, I don't want to jinx the guy because he's done so well for us. Taylor Moton started his 100th game against the Saints on last Sunday, and the guy thankfully has done. He's great. I mean, he's never been in like an all pro or anything, but he's just solid. He's great right tackle for the Panthers. Um, Hoping he doesn't decline anytime soon, but you got to have, I think, a contingency plan there. I think going forward in the next, I'd say probably the next 2 years, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't need a tackle now. Like I think
no,
we're
no,
probably
no,
I
no.
think a center might be a bigger need than tackle.
Yeah,
If you want to talk about offensive lineman, you got to get a center first.
yeah.
Um, I
And
mean,
Corbett's coming off those injuries, which we know
yeah,
obviously years in a row. He hasn't played the position a lot. So it's a little concerning, but I personally was okay with the move when they did it because I think Corbett is versatile enough that he can do it. And I think he has the veteran experience that I think he's going to be okay. I know a lot of people were very hesitant on putting him at center, but I personally was fine with it.
yeah. I mean, but if you're asking me somebody on offense, we probably need to go after. It'll probably be center, tight end. I think Javion Sanders is gonna be a star, bro. I do. I
I'm
think
excited for him, man.
I think
I'm
he's gonna be a
excited.
star. We just gotta get everything. We got to get our ducks in a row on our end. I mean, you could argue getting another wide receiver if you think we're not going to resign Deontay Johnson and then you got Thielen. You could argue it. You could, and if you're not a believer in Mingo, then you definitely need to do it, right? But outside of that,
Yeah.
I mean, other than quarterback, like, but we told me now I can't pick quarterback, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, do
But
they?
I don't. But I'm like I said, I'm a believer in Bryce. But when I noticed that the offensive line was giving him time, it comes to a point where like if you don't see improvement, then you might have to cut. Depending on what the record is, you might have to decide to cut ties or try to trade him off and draft a guy. If we end up with a number one overall pick, I mean, it's going to be tough not to take a quarterback. Unfortunately, it's just going to be tough.
Well, and there are people out there who would say, trade it for assets, continue building around him, taking, your defensive end, taking your another receiver like you
Yep.
mentioned, maybe a center, and then give Bryce that third year with more pieces around him, and then make the evaluation, even if it was the number one overall pick. But and me personally, I probably would still do that. But again,
I'm going to tell you why it's hard.
it is hard. No, don't get me wrong. It is hard. I say that it's very hard.
I'm gonna tell you why it's hard. And I've said it before. I'm a believer in giving a high draft pick 3 years before we
Yep.
start having the bust discussions, right?
That's me
But
too. Yep.
this is what makes it hard. You have a brand new head coach. If if he doesn't see adequate enough improvement, he will have a strong argument to say, look, you hired me here. I gotta have a chance to succeed. I need to go get my guy. He's not going to be attached to Bryce Young if he's not working out. He wasn't part of the regime that drafted him. So as much as I like Bryce as a person, and as much as this is a performance based league.
Yep.
He's got to perform. Now it's not, and like I said, it's not necessarily about wins and losses. Because if you show vast improvements, or if you get hurt, that's a different factor, right? But if you don't have any level of progress or vast improvements, and you still end up with the number one overall pick, it's going to be a tough sell not to take somebody.
Yeah.
Take a quarterback, Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Even though
You,
I would not like it because I think it goes against it. I've always said this. I never was a fan of us taking Cam number one overall. I wanted Patrick Peterson that year, but I also understood that new head coach got to get his guy. You got to be linked to a guy,
yeah.
and Cam Newton is the guy you want to be linked to. And if you read some of the history of what it took for them to finally decide to take Cam Newton, it could have went bad. Like there was legitimate debate between him and Gabbert.
Yep.
If it wasn't for Ron Rivera, it probably wouldn't have happened. Because Ron was the one that was asking, like, why are we not? What's wrong with him? Like they were trying to find so many reasons not to take him. Ron was
Yep.
one of the main ones that vouched for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Couple more, and we'll get you out of here. Dave from Panthers Nation Podcast has been my guest today here on Inside the Vault 46th episode. Dave, What is your prediction for the game on Sunday against the Chargers? We'll circle back as we close out here in next few minutes. Prediction for the game on Sunday, and ultimately your we'll say your three keys to the game in case people are not watching the whole episode or turning in clips. Three keys to the game. Prediction on Sunday.
The Chargers are going to win this game. I just pray to God that it's a close game and it's competitive. I think it'll be something like, I'm hoping that it's something to the effect of a 24-20, 24-17 type of ordeal.
Yeah.
I think our inability to not be able to stop the run is going to kill us. And I think they're going to go to it very often, and I don't blame them one bit.
No.
And we're going to see the return of Bradley Bozeman, so I'm pretty sure he's going to have something to say, right? So what I'm rooting for a close game. I would love for us to pull the upset. I just don't see it. I just think that the Chargers are a talented roster. I think that Jim Harbaugh's been here before. I think he's a great coach, and I think they're gonna beat us. I just hope it's not dominant. The 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock thing, the west to east thing ain't gonna be enough, man. Like I just don't see it. I think for Carolina to win this game, we're gonna have to control the line of scrimmage. We're gonna have to control the clock, and we're gonna have to be able to stop the run. We have to be able to stop the run. Like, I'm not worried about the pass defense. I'm more concerned about our ability to stop the run and try to have an adequate pass rush and try to have a balanced offense if possible. But I know that Canales wants to run the ball. So we got
Okay.
to be that.
Yeah. Before I let you go, is there anything that I have not hit that you would like to talk about, whether that's something you talked about on P&P this week, or just something you want maybe my listeners to glean into that maybe I haven't brought up that you want to incite the audience here?
What are your thoughts on the weekly meetings with the owner?
I mean, I'm probably in the minority. I don't have a problem with it. And the reason I say that is because if your boss was not performing, if you're not performing at your job, your boss is going to call you in and you're going to say,
But that
bro,
ain't but so and I said this on Twitter.
yeah,
That ain't his boss. That's his boss's boss. Like, the owner's the owner, right? Like, when you talk about chain of command, his boss is the GM.
that's fair. That's fair.
Like,
Okay.
so for
That's
me,
fair.
it goes back to when I discussed the owner shouldn't I shouldn't know who the owner is, right? Like, when I have an issue at work, I don't hear from the department head. Yeah, that individual is the big boss. But that ain't who I hear from. I hear from my first line supervisor,
Right.
right? They're the ones that gives me the how's things going? Is everything okay? I communicate my challenges, and then my boss goes to their boss. So I just think that I'm not like, we have to, I want Tepper to be patient here. And I don't know if there's going to be, and if things keep rolling like it did on Sunday, I'm concerned that the patience is going to be gone, and then I'm worried. Then I will be legitimately concerned about Bryce, because then you got too much turmoil for the quarterback. Can't win that way. Now, I
Yeah.
just wanted your thoughts on it, man, because
Yeah.
there's always a whole back and forth about that. And, and people are like, well, that's your boss. And I'm like, he's the owner of the team. I mean, he's everybody's boss, but
Right.
he shouldn't be doing this. Like, you hired the GM for a reason, right? The GM do
Yeah.
his job.
That's fair. That's
That's all.
and I respect the opinion. I do think there are other coaches that probably have those discussions with their owners.
No, it's
Maybe not.
possible.
It may not be as public knowledge like the Panthers is, obviously, but I do think that's possible, like you said. Well, as I said at the top, my guest today has been Dave from Panthers Nation podcast. Dave, before we get you out of here, is there anything you want to promote? You can obviously, besides P&P, obviously promote that. Any other things you're working on? Where can people find you? And obviously the good work that you do.
Yeah. So once again, man, appreciate the invite. You can follow me, my personal account on Twitter at champd1012, but you can also follow the channel at Panther Nation PC on Twitter. Rashad primarily runs that Twitter handle, and we have our YouTube channel, Panther Nation, P&P Rashad and Dave. Just search it; it'll pop up. Like I said, we're the largest one. We're the largest independent show on YouTube that covers the Panthers. Me and Rashad are HBCU grads, historically black college grads. We both went to North Carolina A&T State University. I started covering HBCU sports, so I have a couple of shows with that. Like I do a show called Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. That's also on YouTube as well. That goes live. I cover the Wednesday show weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I also have a show on the HBCU Nightly Network called MD. We call it the most chaotic show in HBCU sports. So we just talk about random topics about HBCUs. We also get into what's going on in the streets, popular wise, that's non HBCU. We just talk about anything we just feel like talking about. Like this week, we had the show last night. We talked about Shannon Sharp's fiasco and
Ah,
and
yeah.
and and Kendrick, the Kendrick diss record. And then we got into a little bit into sports, but and then Frankie Beverly passed away. So we got into the discussion point about that, a legendary musician that's also an HBCU staple. Like, so we got into those conversations. So the topics could be pretty much whatever. And we feed off the chat occasion depending on what we're talking about. We talked a lot of NFL last night too, because he's a Giants fan. So we
Uh,
definitely had a whole conversation about that. But we
yep.
both looked bad last weekend. So
Yeah.
we were both drowning in our sorrows, trying to decide who's worse. And he and my buddy, love him to death, my man Banks, he went into a whole spill about the 100-year history of the New York Giants and the lack of
Oh boy.
black quarterbacks. So that was a very fun segment that we went through when he pretty much went every decade about progression of black quarterbacks and when the Giants made the decision to not take one.
Yeah.
And it goes to even to now when they could have had Lamar Jackson, they opted for Daniel Jones.
My one friend who's also a Giants fan, and I know we're getting off topic as I let you go here, but
Yep.
for the listeners who may be not familiar from other games besides the Panthers this past weekend, my one friend who is a Giants fan, also he runs one of my fantasy leagues. He said Ryan, where was Brian Burns this weekend? He and Kayvon Thibodeau did absolutely nothing for me in my team this weekend. So, Brian Burns was non-existent for the New York Giants this first game, and Kayvon Thibodeau as well, though, and not just Brian Burns. Both of
Yeah.
them combined for 2 tackles in that game against the
Well,
Vikings. So,
we talk about McCaffrey, and then when we heard that he was hurt, I was like, don't I put a tweet, like, don't worry, 49ers fans. I can relate. I
we
can
can relate.
relate.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah. Well, we'll end it there. Dave from PNP has been my guest today here on Inside the Vault. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time. Dave, we'll talk to you down the road.
Appreciate the invite, man. Peace.
And that'll wrap up this episode of Inside the Vault. We'll catch you later. See you next time.